The part-time relationship. Last summer I caught my wife in the very early stages of a workplace affair. Her company sent her and 14 others to their headquarters for an entire month, and she stayed in a hotel. I was paying bills while she was gone and saw over 100 texts to some number I didn't recognize in the first 2 weeks she was gone, confronted, and smacked it down really hard. She claims nothing more than drinks, a lot of nights of it, ever happened. But she spent every waking moment with this guy, catering to his needs, texting things like he looks bored while in the same room with him. I have no evidence to the contrary, and she has been truly remorseful. So I have no choice but to try to put aside my worst fears of what happened and accept her version of events. Her almost possible other man was 10 years younger than I am, empirically handsome, and really fit. I'm not ugly, but I am not the young hottie her other man was. Although we've reconciled and things are generally great for us, my self-confidence and body image are shattered. This wrecked me in a lot of ways that I can't seem to put behind me. How did other BS recover their self-confidence after something like this? I do work out 5 days a week, lost over 30 pounds. It clears my head but doesn't give me a sense of accomplishment or pride. I was not like this before this past incident with my wife. My wife and I have reconciled, and honestly, things have never been better between us. Perhaps I'm not explaining myself well. When you find out your spouse of, in my case, 20 years this year, is suddenly capable of forgetting about you in an instant and seems ready to throw away your entire life together for a cheap grind with someone who, by all accounting, is merely younger and better looking, it shattered my confidence. I mean, my world felt like it came apart. She was my world. I adored her. That in itself was a huge part of the problem. She is trying very hard to help, but honestly, her efforts are hollow to me because I know confidence and self-esteem are internal qualities. I had them before. I feel like half the person I was. I started reading No Nicer Guy. I totally buy into the need to be more alpha when you are oriented to be beta. All of that is well underway. Maybe I'm just impatient. I should add that it's not an all-the-time feeling of worthlessness. It comes in waves. This morning I told her that she dropped a huge rock into the fairly calm pond of our marriage. The initial splash is over, but there are ripples still hitting the shore every so often. That's the best way I could describe it. The initial impact is done, but the repercussions lap up like waves. Her job, they have her out of town occasionally, but never for something this long. Usually just 2 or 3 nights. Bad enough because they always load them all into hotels and give them happy hour coupons. I swear there are some companies that, while they are not cheater-friendly, are decidedly anti-family. They would be happy for the employee to give up a personal life for the collective. Comments. You say you have no choice but to accept her version of events? But why? What do you really think happened? Do you really think after a month they never even kissed? How far do you think they went? Did he get farther with your WW than you have? If you don't know what really happened, these are the questions that will plague you for the rest of your life. It seems complicated, but it's not. You don't know what happened, so it's human nature to expect the worst. So, you either have to accept that something happened and get over it, or you have to get some answers. If I were you, I would force her hand and find out what really happened. Make her take a poly and tell her if she doesn't come clean you will divorce her. She can win you back if she still wants you. OP responds, I tell you why I chose my decision to accept her version. 1. True, genuine, sobbing, snot running, fetal position remorse. 2. She immediately and fully complied with all of my demands for transparency and removed this guy out of her world. 3. The road back has been almost completely her making amends while I ran the 180. 4. In 20 years, I've never seen any kind of behavior like this from her. She doesn't even have it in her to leave a grocery store with something the clerk forgot to ring up. Her conscience bothers her about very small things. No way. I think she'd be able to live with a secret like that. If I had encountered what so many of these guys here do, a wife who starts calling me controlling, or refuses to break off contact, etc., I would be history. The problem isn't that I am struggling to we are there and things are fine. The problem is, in my heart and spirit, I feel deflated. I cannot let go of the insecurities that I wasn't enough then. So what's to say I'll be enough the next time? I am physically a different person. New clothes, new appearance, 30 pounds lighter and way more buff. I get complimented all the time. I had an old client yesterday tell me if we passed in the street, he'd never even recognize me. All of that is for the better, but none of it actually helps my self-confidence. It all just strikes me as insincere. Maybe this crap has put me in a depression. And to anyone out there even thinking of cheating, you know not what you do. I can assure you, there was no rug sweeping. It was entirely my way or the highway. I was fortunate enough to basically do the 180 without knowing what it was. Before this, it was a marriage of equals, partners in business, partners in life, best friends, constant companions. I never doubted her. I trusted her implicitly. Now all of that has changed. There are no more male friends allowed for my wife. No time alone with male colleagues at all. There are no girls' night outs. We date together or go out with other married couples. and that's it. Boundaries that we never thought we needed to discuss are now firmly in place. And, until I can let go of this and trust her again, she knows she can never delete a text or email until I'm okay with it. I know every password to everything, including her work email. She knows I verify the phone, check the email, monitor her. I never used to, and there is the problem. I don't like having to be this way. I want to have that confidence in our relationship again, so that I can let at least some of my guard down. I know from this experience and those on this board that the marriage I had is gone forever. What will rise in the wreckage is, I hope, an even better one, with much more communication than before. And so far, so good. But none of that has helped me feel like I somehow wasn't, in some small way, responsible for her needing the attention of another man. There is that constant quiet voice in me that tells me that I wasn't man enough, or strong enough, or alpha enough, or a good enough father and husband, that I'm past my prime. And in my mind, if I can't reach the place where I know for sure I am worthy of her fidelity, then I don't know if I will ever be able to stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's a hellish existence, waiting for the one you love the most to drop another bomb on your life. They work in same company but halfway across the country. It is highly unlikely they will meet up again, because this training was a one-off kind of thing. They met at this training, stayed on the same hotel floor, and shared a car together. According to the text history of her and the other people in the class, they were seen as not separable. She came home 2 Saturdays only during that entire month. The first weekend, she spent it out touring the city with this guy and a couple of other classmates. The first weekend, it took less than a week to jeopardize 20 years, 2 kids, etc., and I never saw any of it coming. We weren't even having problems that I was aware of. How quickly WS can forget their entire lives for a bit of strange is beyond me. But I've seen it many times in my own field, as well. Whenever we have conferences, or we get a wholesaler traveling down to schmooze us, they act as if they are single from day one. I have a private practice and work alone all day, so it was a kind of torture to be sitting at my desk wondering what she was doing. You guys know the drill. You can see the text messages on the phone bill, but you can't read them. I was driving myself crazy. So, I hit the gym at lunch and made my lunch a 2-hour workout every day. I still do it. By the time she came home, I had already dropped 10 pounds, cut my hair short, and grown a goatee for the first time in our marriage. She was very unnerved by how much I had changed in such a short amount of time. I told her, that makes 2 of us. The need to reinvent myself was instinctual. I almost felt that the old me, the trusting, idealistic one, had died. Since then, I have definitely caught, and I think, even passed her rank again. She now chases me and is jealous, really jealous, of other women noticing me. For the first time in our marriage, I'm starting to pull the looks and smiles from women in their 20s again. That had been a while. You hear so often here that you have to be willing to lose the marriage in order to have a hope of fixing it. That is so true. I set about to destabilize the marriage and immediately show her that her actions will have irrevocable consequences. There is no going back to blind trust and group hug, soulmate-type feelings. Now there is simply a man moving on with his life. She is welcome to come along, and I hope she does, but it will no longer be on her terms. For any male reader who doubts this alpha, beta thing, let me tell you, she has never been as physical, flirty, or attentive to me as she has been since she lost control of our marriage. I am now the captain again, and she is the first mate. And much to my surprise, and contrary to everything you hear in this hyper-feminist world, she relishes it. She tells me I am the most attractive I have ever been, and she knew me at 21, because I am now grounded and focused and independent. And not just her husband. Let that sink in, fellas, and I'm just not happy. I resent, so much, that it was her actions that forced me to abandon the happy, trusting man I was, and replace him with a deliberately alpha, cynical, suspicious man. In most aspects of my life, I am confident and self-assured. I was perhaps most so in my marriage. I was just one of those dupes who said proudly, never us. We will forever be us. When, for the first time, that illusion was shattered, I was completely devastated. I mean, panic attacks and even an episode of heart palpitations all night. Looking back, I think I kind of went into shock. I know I am competing with the other man. I hate that guy with a vengeance I never knew I had. I hate him. Winston Churchill said that a man is only as big as the thing that makes him angry. And I believe that. That's why I am here, asking for advice on how to move beyond this urgent need to compete with someone I know is already beneath me. I beat him in every single way, except apparently the one that mattered to the love of my life. He's a young hottie with no responsibilities or achievements except a pretty face. And I'm a 41-year-old father and husband and professional who gave everything. Sacrificed a lot of my own dreams, for my family. Ultimately, I won, I got the girl. But in the aftermath, I feel like I lost my soul. Maybe the price was too high. Was so beta before. Not always, but had become more so over the past couple of years as I was trying to support her in a demanding new role at work. Became the laundry and dish bee. That's one of the things that snapped me out of my beta fog early on. The realization that while I was home with the kids, cooking and cleaning, she was in Chicago for a month, out in bars. That infuriated me. So, working on bringing back my alpha, figuring out that I was in many ways a nice guy, not clearly expressing my needs and establishing clear ground rules of what I will be willing to accept and not accept in a marriage. I will say that not only did she snap to attention once she returned, and we had a rough summer getting to the bottom of what happened, but her attraction to me has grown exponentially. Let me give you an example. I, like most guys, have a higher desire than the wife. So, for years, I'd approach, she'd be tired from the kids, or sore, or whatever, and decline. Over time I just began to accept that when she was going to be okay with bonding, she'd let me know. I expected her to know my needs and comply without ever expressly telling her. So, I fixed that. Now I tell her we are going upstairs. Period. I text her in the morning to wear whatever outfit I'm in the mood to see her in. I take her. I don't ask, like a lot of men, "Sweetie, love of my life, pretty please, will you spend some time with me?" I wasn't that bad, but hell, I think a lot of guys get to that point. And her reaction was amazing. Best bonding of my marriage. Multiple times a day. I initiate. She complies. We are grabbing at each other all the time. The kids, teens, tell us to get a room. She tells me no, she is more attracted to me than ever before. Why? Because I'm in control. That was so counterintuitive to everything I ever learned about women in this liberated era. I thought they wanted full-on equals. My wife says that's a lie even women feel pressured to believe. She wants me to be the captain. She's perfectly happy being the first officer. This thread may seem strange to you guys, because it sounds like things are good between my wife and me. And generally, we are. But those damn insecurities settle in every couple of weeks or so. I get suspicious for no reason. I suddenly want to replay the whole sordid thing. It's hell on me. I know I'm headed in the right direction, but wonder why I still feel this way. Empty and distrustful. Am I just being impatient? Bottom line, guys, alpha. You must be at least half alpha for it to work long term. I wasn't, and nearly lost my family because the female I live with needs some alpha to make her juices flow. Yours does too. I think the first time I just really took her was the start of our R. I was angry. I remember just being overwhelmed and, in a way, reclaiming what was mine. Afterward, she asked me why I was never like that before. Because it was such a turn-on for her. She told me she had been waiting for me to initiate and had actually just been playing coy about it all the time. Maybe another fitness test. I told her I would not accept a low bonding life anymore. She agreed, but she said it is not in her to do much initiating, so I needed to do it. I agreed, and just felt empowered to take charge. According to her, she didn't care about him. She found him cute. Huge difference. Hers wasn't an emotional affair. I think she flew away from a marriage to a slowly increasingly beta man and found herself suddenly in the presence of basically nothing but alpha in this guy, and the limbic system decided she might need a little strange. I am convinced she did not go pia with him. I can never prove it, but I know my wife and I know what remorse looked like. I started my recovery by first studying my enemy, the OM, figuring out what he was that I lacked. It was a reconnaissance mission in a way. He was a typical alpha pickup artist, almost a stereotype. So, I started there. New clothes, new wardrobe, dropped the flab. I can't be 30 again, so that was his only winning attribute. Everything else, I either had him beat or could catch up. I can never know for sure. I have her word and no text message gave any indication of bonding. Yet they had a month together. So no, I can never know for sure. That's why I finally, after exhausting my options and raking her over coals for months looking for a change in story, talked to others who were with that group, etc., and no one saw anything but a woman trying way awfully hard to get the guy's attention. It seemed very one-sided. That part hurt maybe worse than anything. It wasn't like she could have used the one thing led to another defense. This was her chasing him. I can never know for sure. I have her word and no text message gave any indication of physical affair. Yet they had a month together. So no, I can never know for sure. That's why I finally, after exhausting my options and raking her over coals for months looking for a change in story, talked to others who were with that group, etc., and no one saw anything but a woman trying way awfully hard to get the guy's attention. It seemed very one-sided. That part hurt maybe worse than anything. It wasn't like she could have used the one thing led to another defense. This was her chasing him. I have all passwords to everything, including work email. I monitor the phone. Nothing can be deleted without my okay. All of these guys are blocked from her phone and FB. No male friends for her. None. We can go out together or with other married couples, but there are no divorced, single girl night outs. And absolutely no male friends. Unless he is flamboyantly gay, he's off limits. She has me for guy time. I have a keylogger on her PC and on the phone. I have a VAR that I've stopped using regularly but can return it on a moment's notice if need be. She also agreed voluntarily to inform me of any interactions or future attempts by males at work to let me deal with them personally. I have already, in December, one of the 3 POS guys from her company texted her literally in the middle of our anniversary dinner, saying, "What are you doing?" She saw who it was and immediately became upset. because she had not been talking to this guy at all. He tried to get her to go have drinks with him that past summer. She declined, and then he'd text her on national holidays. Can you imagine Happy Labor Day showing up from some schmuck guy on your wife's phone? It happened. She never responded to any of them, so a text right in the middle of our dinner together came up out of the blue. My only guess on his timing was he stalked her FB page and saw it was our anniversary and wanted to run interference. So, I told her from now on, I would do the honor of telling these guys to stay away from my wife. Since they weren't taking her seriously, I called the number, and he answered. I told him I am the husband of the married woman he is pursuing, and he is to forget she even exists from this moment forward. He was silent. I said if I find out he has contacted her in any way, he will be meeting me in person when he least expected it, and asked him if he understood. He quietly said, yes, and I hung up. He hasn't tried again. What is the difference between good and nice? Good guy is a man of principle and character. Friendly and giving, but from a position of strength. Good guys respect others and themselves. A good guy can say no when he needs to. There is nothing wrong and in fact, much right with being a good guy. Nice guy is a weak, desperate man who goes about doing for others. Not out of generosity, but for the pat on the head he needs so badly. A nice guy can never say no, they just resent being asked. Nice guys are doormats. 3 months later, things are good, great even. I continue to work out, do my own thing, grow my business. My wife is solidly in the marriage, following my rules about phones and passwords, and completely understanding of any questions or concerns I have. Occasionally, I'll get a bit of anger. Like when she tells me I don't have to work out so much, she doesn't need a super buff guy. To which I've snapped back with things like, oh really, you did a year ago. A year on, what I now take from this whole experience, this life-changing experience, is that love must be action, not emotion. You don't feel love for someone, you set about to love that person. I was still hurting and at times, furious at the loss of the life I once had. My marriage was reconciling, but I was not doing what I needed to do to heal internally. And, like the scriptures say, there is a season for everything. I needed a season of anger and hurt, and a time of picking up the sword to defend my honor, my family, and my manhood. I did that instinctively when the affairs came to light, but didn't know how to let that fighting spirit go. But the same scriptures tell us there comes a season to lay the sword back down. I began to fear that I would never put it down again around my wife. So I had to choose to finally really reconcile. I decided to stop my surveillance, stop coming here to feed the beast of my own insecurities and anger, and just take up and reacquaint myself with this beautiful woman who said yes to me 20 years ago this year. The last 3 or 4 months have finally brought real healing, and though I'm not 100% yet, I'm far closer than I was when I started. She has changed in every way. She is back physically and mentally in love with me. She's all in like I've never seen her. I fixed the marriage, in huge part, by becoming strong enough as an individual to live without it. When she saw that I was suddenly thinner, buffer, more confident, and most importantly, able to let go of her entirely, she came racing back to my side. My wife fell for a young alpha male wannabe while her loving hubby was back home folding towels and panties in the evenings while she worked. When I suddenly, and instinctively, called BS on this EA, laid down law about her girl night outs or male friends away from the marriage, full disclosure, etc., she responded immediately and submissively. She needed and wanted me to man up and be the man she fell in love with. I, like so many others, went all beta and supportive and timid on her. I gave up my friends and my interests. I had no man cave in the home. I asked to spend any money. That kind of crap which is fundamentally going to switch off a woman's desires. I was doing the right things already to fix this. And it's been a complete 180 for both of us. We didn't do marriage counseling, but we have both left it on the table and agreed that if either of us wants it in the future, we will do it. We also call a state of the marriage meeting once a month, just to let gripes out and talk issues through as a team. Also, something we hadn't done in years, date night every other week. I have no more evidence of an affair, no evidence that her original story was any worse than what I first heard, and nothing from her that shows any secrecy or hiding. Whether or not it was a short P, it would matter to me for several reasons. The most important being that she is adamant that it was not. If I learned back then that she screwed up and it was a PA, it would have been harder to forgive. But I believe if her remorse and willingness to do whatever I needed to reconcile was as strong as she showed me, I would have been eventually able to get over it. What would be totally unacceptable is for her to have had 100 times so far to come completely clean and didn't. So, if I now found out it was more than what I had to deal with already, it would be unforgivable. She has had 2 ultimatums put to her over the last year, and I am deadly serious about both. 1. During the early days of she got one chance to tell me the whole and complete truth. If I later found out anything was kept from me, we're finished. 2. Obviously she is going to be approached by men and obviously she is going to find other men attractive from time to time. But any effort to engage them socially without my knowledge is now cheating. No FB chats, no lunches alone, no texting. We never needed or discussed a boundary about opposite gender friends or co-workers before this. Now there are no guy friends of my wife's. There are guy friends of us as a couple, but her days of having male pals is behind her. The past year we did a lot of growing as a couple, but the biggest changes have been in me. I was one of those guys who said it'll never happen to me. I now understand that I was placing an impossibly high standard on my wife. That she was too good to ever be tempted or played. That's one of the fundamental ways I've changed. So instead of romantic, dreamy we'll always be together stuff of my earlier marriage, it's now more of I choose to be with you. But don't you ever make me doubt that again. Story 2. I have been with my husband for 7 years and married for the last year and a half. I have a 12-year-old daughter from a previous relationship that he treats and takes care of as his own. This is the first time being married for both of us. About 2 years ago we hit a rough patch in our relationship, but we were able to make it through even deciding to get married after the whole mess. A few months after we got married, my H started complaining that I was not showing him the affection and emotions he needs physically. We have been trying to have a baby for some time and I thought this might have to do with my lack of emotion and affection. I suggested that we try to make some time for the two of us. This would happen but it wouldn't last. Before long, we would end up having the same conversation about the same subject. We basically swept our issues under the rug and tried to move on with the marriage. 2 months ago, we purchased and moved into our first home. A week later we had our routine argument about the same issues. This time the argument escalated. I ended up in the bathroom in tears and he was there to console me, promising that we would fix this together and he would never leave me over this. A week ago, today, my H informed me that he was no longer in love with me and didn't know what he wanted to do. He said that the lack of emotion and affection has taken its toll and he doesn't feel anything for me anymore. He said that he wants to be able to do whatever he wants, no questions asked. He told me that there is nothing I can do to change his mind. You can imagine how shocked I was. The week only brought more bad news. Friday, he told me that he wanted to break up and I was no longer his girl and free to do what I wanted. He also said that I was no longer his type because I don't have any independence from him. Over the past 3 years he has financially supported me and said he wanted me to be at home. Now this disgusts him about me. He says I need to find myself and he needs to find himself. But I thought that was something you do as a couple once you were married. He also said that marriage is dumb and the vows we took mean nothing because I have pushed him too far. As of now, we are still sharing the same house, room and bed. I have no family or friends in my new town, his hometown. I am looking to get a job and create a little independence for myself and my daughter. I am trying to work on our marriage even if he isn't ready to right now. I refuse to give up on this. Is there hope for my marriage or am I grasping at straws? I know right now he doesn't want to work on it, but can this change? It has only been a week but it feels like a year. I am willing and still honoring our vows, but he has stated that he doesn't believe in our vows and says marriage is just a piece of paper. It seems that he is making every excuse to not have to work on our marriage at this point. I have read that it is possible to work on my marriage by myself, so that is what I am trying to do. I just don't know if it is all in vain. It has only been a week, which isn't very long in this type of situation. So I've been told. I don't want to make any quick decisions so soon. I am not a religious person but very spiritual. I am looking for some spiritual guidance for myself at the moment. I feel that I would greatly benefit from counseling. I love my husband. I can understand why he is frustrated, however. I just don't see why he won't try. There are no affairs, nothing, there is not another woman for him. He just keeps reverting back to no counseling. Nothing will change. I am just at such a loss here. Out talks go well, and then he strays off. Latest being waiting on an approval for an apartment, which there is no way we can afford 2 rentals. I know I cannot make him want to fix things, but I see it as easy fixes. So easy that ending things seems so foolish. Tossing 10 years aside seems so foolish. Is there anything I can do, say? The way I see it is I am missing something, or not saying something right. Weeks later, well, H and I met last night. For the last month and a half, we've been trying to get together once a week. We really end up hanging out and seem to just enjoy each other's company. We have small talk conversations, and each time he seems to be more engaged in the conversation, with the exception of when he was sick. So last week I brought up the idea of me moving back home and us working things out. Well, we talked about me moving back home last night and he said I'll think about it, which has been slightly discouraged. He seems to be so fixated on the stuff that's gone wrong that he cannot see all the good. I told him flat out that I believe he would have filed for divorce if that is what he wanted. I mentioned to him that I believe a big part of our downfall was communication-based. Along with stuff that I did, picked fights. Was crabby. I have been diligently working on myself and feel better than I have in years, so now I sit and wonder how I get my H out of his fog. As for MCH is not interested. he is very against counseling from his experiences as a kid, and me being honest means me saying I'm really not gung-ho for it either. From most of what I've read on here and in other research, it just exacerbates the situation and becomes a big game of who to blame. I am not interested in that. I want to make good on what I've done, and I feel that by me being more patient, loving, with him, he will begin to give me the things that I've needed. What's hard here is that I know my H well enough to say that he just prefers not to deal. Which means fog forever. This is what I am having a hard time with. I love him. I want things to work. I believe they can work. There are no other people involved, other than his shady brother. So it's not a pick-me-over-her situation. It's a matter of him saying, yep, we're going to work on this. We're worth it. Or if he's done, then file for divorce. I will not do this for him. I do not want a divorce, and this is what is so difficult for my support system to understand. A month later, he wants out. I say it's too early to quit. 1. He tells my mom that he wants a separation, not divorce. Yes, you read that correctly. My mom heard, not me. 2. This is an email reply I got. It isn't easy walking away from something BTW. Regardless of the situation, there are what-ifs and things like that. Either way, it is broken, whether or not it is fixed. I don't doubt that things can be okay. My concern is if things can be good or great. What do I make of this? My response to his last email that I agree things are broken. Nothing will be fixed either way if no one tries. I've asked him to meet with the pastor who married us. Frankly, I need to believe in something again, because if he has no doubts things can be okay, why not take the change, get some help from someone who has only our best interests at heart? Not a paycheck, and strive for a great future. And now I wait. He and my family have always been close, closer than he is with his own family. She asked him for his car payment via text. He's 2 months late. And then she just said he needs to figure things out, to which, I guess, he replied he is looking for reasons not to divorce but cannot find any. Which contradicts what his email to me said. And thinks a separation is best, not divorce. I agree the one person he needs to talk to, me, he doesn't. He's backed out in meeting we've set up for nearly 3 weeks now. Another month later. Sadly, nothing is worked out. I'm just going home. Mail has become an issue. I miss my animals terribly, and I miss my home. So, I am moving back in next week. Saw our pastor last weekend. H wasn't sure. Then it shouldn't hurt. Then became undecided. And eventually never showed up for the appointment. Didn't call or text either. Haven't heard from him since the undecided text last week. Met with a lawyer to see what my options are, which are not options to me. Retainer of $25,000 to keep myself financially protected. Option equals divorce. Funny thing is I have less than $25,000 that the meddling bill can take from me. Decided to just move back in. Figure H will either get his crap together or he will be so uncomfortable he will move out. The latter being more likely, I am sure. Decided that if he wants out, he'll need to hike up his panties and make the arrangements. As I told the pastor, he's gotten to the point where it seems as though he believes I never existed. That we never existed. Pastor has known that family a long, long time, and felt that H may have too much baggage to deal with any relationship. Alluded to a worse childhood than what I knew of. It's all sad, just very sad. I figure though that I have reached the point where I am ready to go home. From that point it is up to him. And even he will need to make a decision as he is not capable of living where he feels uncomfortable. 2 months later. Well, I admit when I am wrong, and wow, was I ever. I always said my H would never cheat, it wasn't him. Well, I found out on the 5th that he was. Since June, all while stringing out marriage along. Leaving me not only hurt by the cheating and lies but also feeling like a complete idiot for working so hard to fix our marriage. Sadly, this wasn't just a fling. He loves this girl. She loves him. Talking about having kids. He's never known unconditional love till her. I could go on and on. I found his emails. This is how I found out. Was registering for school, and his Google Mail account popped up. He didn't log out. And there it all was. She is a co-worker, also married, also hadn't filed for D from her H. I actually met her H. We met. She's been stringing him along worse than my H has me. Supposedly anyway. I filed for D, but now I am really struggling with the hurt. The rage has dissipated, and the pain has set in. He is building a life with this girl, one that I fought 10 years to make with him. My family, his family, and our friends are all really upset with my H, as they were lied to also. But they are nice to him. That is also really hard for me to deal with. I feel like he's won, I'm being punished, and I didn't do anything wrong. Papers were filed officially today. He is being served at work. Wonder if his co-workers knew. The girl is a co-worker, married as well. He went from denial to my fault to I cheated to all within 15 minutes. In his head I am confident in saying that he feels he did nothing wrong. I guess I just really don't get what was so hard about him ending things with me when he met this girl. Or even fell for her or whatever. Half a year later, what I learned through my experience is that my husband never gave a crap about me, or anyone but himself. I was blind to it for so long and wasted nearly 1/3 of my life hoping he'd change. well, he is who he is. And I am thankful I came across those racy detailed emails. Funniest part, the girl is married too. Still is to my knowledge. So much for him creating a life with her. My comment, hope you guys learned something from these because I did, and also, let me prepare